All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to wait a few minutes as folks start to come in. Want to thank you for joining us. Please take the time to do whatever you need for yourself in order to get comfortable. We want to make sure everyone feels comfortable in the space, feels comfortable participating, and showing up as their full selves. Still have some folks coming in here. So if you'd like, please introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know what's your name and where you're coming from, so we can all get to know each other a little bit better as we prepare to engage and adapt. Joined here by Reverend Moya Harris. Going to be doing the introductions here soon, but looking forward to speaking with you all. All right, so we see Mary coming from Federal Way, Washington, Courtney from Kalispell, Montana, Rick from Sandy Hook, Mary Johnson out of Myrtle Beach, Juliana, welcome. As we get more folks in, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. We want to make sure everyone feels welcome. And then as we work through our curriculum today, we want to make sure everyone does whatever they need in order to make sure that they are comfortable. We're going to give it another minute here and then we're going to get going. We want to make sure to announce that this is being recorded. We want to make sure people have the opportunity to engage these resources and some of this discussion um, asynchronously, so they don't have to be here. So this will be put on YouTube. So I want to make sure folks are aware of that and keep that in mind as we continue with our discussion today. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move to our next slide. All right, welcome to Engage and Adapt. This webinar series is a space where we are going to practice lifting our voices in advocacy in our hands and help. This will be our second Engage and Adapt. If you were here for our first one, I really appreciate you coming back for our second. Please let us know in the chat, in our questions, how we can make sure that this is a resource that is really helpful to you all and something that you will want to share and make sure that your faith communities are utilizing. We want to make sure that our work is being impactful on the ground and we're providing information that people can use. All right, so my name is Chad Stanton. I'm the political director here at Sojourners, Sojo Action, and I will pause and let Reverend Harris introduce themselves as well.
Hey, I'm Reverend Moya Harris, and I'm the Senior Director of Programs. And I'm so glad that y'all joined us today. And we're going to get into some good information. And Chad is going to begin, and then I'll jump in afterwards, and we will tag team. And we also want to thank our colleague, Courtney Brooks, who is on the back end, making sure that all the technology does the technology stuff. So
Yes.
thank Courtney for joining us tonight.
Yes, we definitely want to thank Courtney for looking out in the chat and on our questions and answers. So please feel free to show us some love in the chat as well, coming all the way from Montana. All right, so today we want to talk about faithful leadership in an unsteady economy, responding to economic uncertainty and rising healthcare costs with faith, care, and collective action. When systems tremble, the faithful build together. This has been a principle and I think somewhat of inspiring fact that we've seen throughout the past few months with faith communities and other communities coming together in order to make sure that people are okay. As we see a lot of the changes happen within the systems and institutions that are important to how we think of our civic society and kind of the bedrock and making sure that people are okay. So we have to talk about where we're at right now. In this current moment, here in October, on the 14th, we have an ongoing government shutdown, which is affecting thousands of federal workers. People are being furloughed. They aren't receiving their checks in this moment in time. And This is affecting people, particularly in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, but across the country. I think people are not aware of how vast and really spread out our federal government is, and how many people throughout the country are employed by the federal government who are now kind of in dire straits. Um, and so we want to make sure that we are focusing on that and lifting it up in the moment. Somewhat related, the healthcare premiums rising through the Affordable Care Act, loss of tax subsidies is something that's going to be really concerning for families. It's an ongoing political point of contention, but this is going to be something that's in limbo for people who are really dependent upon the Affordable Care Act in order to make sure that they have the ability to access healthcare. Another issue that's happening at the moment is the rising housing costs. Um, Construction is down as a result of a tax on labor through a tax on immigration, but also just a very constricted labor supply. So the rising housing cost is causing a unprecedented wave of people without housing. So this kind of precarity really affects people across the board. And so when people aren't able to afford their own homes, oftentimes they move in with loved ones and family members if they have the ability to, and if they don't have the ability to, or they don't have access to that sort of social safety net, then they can often find themselves depending on shelters and finding themselves without any sort of shelter whatsoever. So this is something that's been really affecting the economy over a long term. But we've seen from the Urban Institute that there are some unique factors that are making this particularly acute in this moment. Part of this is the deepening economic instability brought on by rising costs and inflation. The Fed, though they are looking to lower rates, just simply cannot outpace what's happening right now with the shock in supply as a result of federal tariffs, which have kind of cut us off from a lot of the suppliers that have helped to make sure that people had the ability to afford the things that they may have needed on a day-to-day basis. And then the fearful people who are fearful of deportation. We're seeing ICE, particularly here in Washington, D.C., Chicago, and other places that are under occupation, attack people as they are looking to work and earn a living for their families, which only puts them into a position of greater economic precarity as people have to decide between their particular public safety and the ability to provide for themselves. This, of course, has knock-on effects throughout the economy, but most importantly, it's really terrorizing people within our communities and our neighborhoods in a way that's concerning, but also in a way that makes it so that they cannot earn a living in a way in which they need to. All right, so what are some of the responses that we're seeing? Some of the trends that we're seeing as well. We're also seeing we're seeing federal workers, particularly here in the DMV, utilizing mutual aid networks. We're also seeing faith leaders step up and offer resources to people who are currently dealing with the fallout of um, not layoffs, but the federal government closing. Um, this is a model that we want to make sure that we share with you in our resources afterwards. We want to make sure people really have a good and deep understanding of what mutual aid may look like, and how they can create their own mutual aid networks. Reverend Harris is going to speak on that a little bit later. But I want to make sure to lift up the really strong example that has been shown by faith leaders here in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. We're also seeing rural healthcare systems respond to the anticipated lack of funding by particularly looking to pull back a little bit of funding in our building in hospitals in rural areas. But we're also seeing people kind of step up and try and make sure that people have, again, networks that they can use in order to get to the places they need to in order to access healthcare. Yes, want to stop here and say, please feel free to utilize the question and answer. I know I'm talking a lot. So if anybody has any questions or if there's anything that's unclear, please don't hesitate to throw something in the Q&A there. As a result of the rise in housing, we're seeing an increasing number of people without housing, but we're also seeing an increasing amount of concentration on making sure that people have access to resources and the things that they need within shelters, and try to advocate for more people first housing. We're also seeing growing fear and exploitation at work sites. Spoke on this on the last slide a bit with the attacks on our neighbors without documents. Just to be a little bit more particular, continuing to see attacks or ICE looking to pick people up at Home Depot, other work sites, at hearings, courthouses, other places where people are working legally, are looking to get their documents legally. And so this is are forcing them to be out of work. And one of the things that we're seeing in response to this is rapid response networks organized around making sure people have a partner or someone who can keep them safe as they try and move throughout the world. So one of the things that we can do right now, as Congress is delivering Affordable Care Act subsidies, is make sure to reach out to Congress directly and demand that they make sure healthcare remains affordable. Sojo Action is currently running a campaign in which you can send a letter to your congressperson or and your senator asking them to do so. Uh, Another thing that we can make sure to put onto the table of things that we want to have Congress deliberating and discussing are the reversing the cuts to Medicaid, which will affect rural health care. And the third thing that we want to make sure we are keeping an eye on are uh, at the state level, as lawmakers are assessing their ability to adjust for funding to SNAP and Medicaid that was passed in the OBBA, the One Bad Beautiful Act, um, One Bad Act. We want to make sure that they aren't abandoning programs like SNAP and Medicaid by saying that they can't afford them. We want to make sure they're doing everything that they can in order to make sure that people have access to the food and healthcare that they may need. And so we're going to make sure to be rolling out campaigns which reflect this as well. Another thing that we're seeing in efforts we want to make sure to amplify are state and municipal leaders establishing safeguards from ICE. So in Chicago, Mayor Brandon Johnson has established safe zones from ICE, and we want to make sure to encourage those types of efforts in order to give people the ability to work and earn a living in a safe environment. We're also seeing unions and legal advocacy groups pushing back on behalf of workers, those who are being laid off and furloughed. We're seeing a lot of union activity and legal efforts in order to make sure they aren't denied back pay once they return to work. And they are, aren't being exploited at the workplace as a result of recent policies. And another thing that, again, I want to make sure to lift up the local food banks, churches, and advocates demanding aid funding uh, so that everyone has the ability to put food on the table and thrive in the way in which they need to. So a big thing that it happens as a result of all of these changes are that communities at the margins are bearing the biggest weight of these factors. I mentioned before, when people lose housing, that also puts a burden on their loved ones. And so low-income families are facing coverage gaps on healthcare. They're facing the loss of housing um, and income. Federal employers and contractors are also bearing a pretty large burden here. And there's been research which is shown and proven that the bulk of the federal workers who've seen the impacts of the recent policies have been Black women and have been Black people. The agencies which have been staffed by Black women have been the ones that have been targeted for the largest cuts, reductions in force, or to be eliminated altogether. And so we want to make sure that we're keeping that in mind as we think through the different dimensions of what's happening with the shutdown. We're also seeing churches get higher benevolence requests as people encounter troubles in their lives. They turn to their faith communities and faith leaders in order to find relief, and we're seeing an increase in that. And so we also understand that this is puts a strain on the resources of the church as well. And so we want to make sure that we're acknowledging that and working to make sure that faith communities are able to like work together in order to meet the need as the moment requires. And then Black and brown rural and urban communities in particular are seeing an loss of coverage. Again, really high rents and rates, and smaller economic opportunity. In particular, again, with deportation efforts aimed at people without documents who are looking to work. So we want to make sure that we keep those things in mind as we think through how we respond.
Thanks, Chad, for just laying out the lay of the land right now. There is a question in the chat, in the question and answer portion about do women need to have their birth certificates for voting? And that hasn't been passed yet. That change to voting has not occurred yet, right, Chad? You're
Yes, that
muted.
hasn't occurred yet. Though we do want to make sure that we are cognizant of what's happening on the democracy front. In particular, the Supreme Court is looking at a case around fair maps, which could be very impactful. But that particular change has not occurred at the moment.
I didn't think so, because I remember we've been talking about it, but we hadn't I hadn't seen any changes to it. So that's good to know. So thanks. Great. So why does this matter to faith leaders? Cornell West says, empathy is not simply a matter of trying to imagine what others are doing or are going through, but having the will to muster enough courage to do something about it. In a way, empathy is predicated upon hope. I just what I was in a previous meeting today, and one of the things we wish that we had more of was empathy. So, as faith leaders, we're all uniquely positioned to have a profound impact on communities. Cornell West beautifully captured the essence of empathy. So, why does this really matter? Because our role is pivotal to fostering a compassionate response to the challenges like SNAP. Our empathy and our leadership can inspire others to join in taking meaningful action. So, as faith leaders, we often find ourselves at the intersection of resistance and restoration. This calls us to really think about our theology, because our theology urges us to embrace our communities, especially when the systems around us are falling apart. This calls for a profound commitment to community care. So we're guarded by what we call prophetic imagination. We're pushing back against empire while we are envisioning a world where everyone can thrive, where everyone I think of Revelation 21, where there's no more crying, no more dying, and the leaves are for the healing of the nations. This vision fuels our action and our hope. So we have to remember also that care is not just a duty, it's sacred work. Through our acts of care, we embody our values and strengthen the fabric of our communities. Okay, next slide. So we're going to talk about mutual aid. And the first thing is mutual aid is not the same as charity. Mutual aid is collective coordination to meet each other's needs, usually from an awareness that the systems that we have in place are not going to meet them as they are. So we're going to dive into this difference. Charity often stems from abundance and a desire to give what we have left over. And sometimes charity is done to get a tax break. Sometimes charity is done to make us feel better. It's about one party giving to another, usually with a sense of a top-down generosity. On the other hand, and I'm not talking about the charity like the charity that is love that's in the Bible. I'm talking about the charity that we look at financially. On the other hand, mutual aid is built on the foundation of solidarity. It is about sharing resources and support, recognizing our interconnectedness and shared struggles. Mutual aid emphasizes community and the idea that our well-being is tied to the well-being of others. The distinction is crucial for us as faith leaders as it aligns with our roles in building supportive and resilient communities. So we next have a short video that tells us more about mutual aid. I think we might need to go out and then share sound, I think, because we're not hearing it. That's the one thing we didn't think
I'm
about.
sorry about that. Let's see. Bear with me 1 second as I make sure to try and share the sound here.
Because if not, I might be able to do it on my end.
Okay, I think that'll be best.
All right, let me just get this up. Here with this technology is like.
All those interview curveballs.
As we work to set up the video here, definitely want to pause to ask if there's any comments, questions, concerns, anything that may have been unclear. I know I did a lot of talking at the top there. Please feel free. No such thing as a bad question. I know we have a few participants here, so. If you don't feel comfortable asking a question here, I can be reached at by email, and I'll make sure to drop it in the chat here. For any further questions, concerns, if you would like to talk about how we may be able to explore a little bit more, we'll be happy to. All right. Do you have any stories about faith communities making some real progress in pushing it back against much of what is happening right now? Yes. So a really inspiring story came out of Chicago in which there were some folks looking to uh, so folks were leaving church and they were alerted that ICE was in the area, and so people within the congregation created kind of like a walking bus for them to kind of get to where they needed to go, and that was very effective in making sure that people were able to remain safe, and that model I think has been emulated in a few different areas, where other faith communities have been able to kind of escort people towards their places of work as well in order to make sure that they were safe. Um, Really quick, double checking more. Are we ready yet? If not, but thank you for the question, Rick.
Yeah, if this doesn't work, we will just skip. I'm trying to see if this will work. All right. Y'all let me know if you hear it.
Elections. I don't want to just write my congressperson and hope that they'll do the right thing.
All right, I'll start.
A lot of us are overwhelmed, pissed, and scared. I don't want to wait till the next election. I don't want to just write my congressperson and hope that they'll do the right thing. I don't want to just post things to the vacuum of social media. I don't want to just make statements about things. I want to change how things are. There are a zillion things we can do, and people are coming up with new ones all the time. This video is going to focus on mutual aid projects, what they are, and why we should be developing them right now. Mutual aid projects are a form of political participation in which people take responsibility for caring for one another and changing political conditions, not just through symbolic acts or putting pressure on their representatives in government, but by actually building new social relations that are more survivable. During recent flooding and storms, we saw mutual aid in action as people helped each other survive. Mutual aid isn't just for those big weather disasters. It is also for the daily, routine, life-threatening disasters of capitalism and white supremacy. People who are pissed about police and prisons are doing mutual aid work like creating prison letter writing projects where people get connected to pen pals in prison to build relationships, help prepare for release, help prisoners have advocates on the outside, and help build a movement against policing in prisons that is informed and led by the people who know the very most about how the system actually works. Some people are creating jail support programs where people get together to make a schedule and agree to be outside their local jail on that schedule and greet anyone getting out and help them get what they need. Maybe a ride, clothes, a phone to call contacts, information about services or benefits. Some people are organizing community bail funds, revolving funds that can pay people's bail so that they are not locked up while they try to prepare for their defense. Money bail systems are one of the ways that poor people and people of color are given the worst chances in the criminal system. Court support projects are where people coordinate to accompany someone facing charges to their court dates, ideally by packing the court with supporters each time, so that no one has to go alone, and sometimes to influence lawyers, judges, and jury by showing their support for the criminalized person. Some people are coordinating ride systems to help families visit prisoners who are being held in facilities far from home. In Oakland, the Oakland Power Projects are about strengthening people's skills to respond to community emergencies in ways that minimize police contact. When you call 911 for a health emergency, the cops come too, and that often leads to violence. The Oakland Power Projects is about training the community to respond to health emergencies, including mental health crises, chronic health problems, and acute health emergencies, so that people don't have to call 911. People who are scared about the emboldenment of ICE and Border Patrol and increasing deportations are doing things like forming rapid response networks where people warn each other about immigration raids and help each other hide, and helping immigrants do safety planning in case they get detained so that someone is ready to take care of their kids and elders. Some rapid response projects are even working on training people to show up and physically stop ICE from taking someone away. Imagine if we built that kind of power to stop arrests through rapid mobilization of a lot of people to outnumber cops. No More Deaths, an organization in Arizona, works to save the lives of people crossing the border by putting food, water, and supplies in the harsh desert areas where people who are crossing often die from the conditions. There are so many mutual aid project possibilities because there are so many intense ways people aren't having their needs met in the brutal systems we live under. Like food projects like Food Not Bombs, projects where people organize temporary housing for people coming out of prison or foster care by opening their homes to each other. Childcare collectives where people watch each other's kids so they can go to political meetings, court, or jobs. Projects where people accompany vulnerable people like trans people or people with disabilities to medical appointments or public benefits offices and hearings. Projects where people make sure neighbors being pushed out by gentrification have good access to information about their housing rights and accompany each other to housing court, help people read documents and defend themselves from eviction. Projects where people protest landlords who are refusing to make repairs or give back security deposits by directly protesting at those landlords' houses and businesses. The messages of this work are: government is, we can't rely on it. You are not alone. The system is the problem, not the person being targeted by it. And we're going to take matters into our own hands and help each other survive right now, rather than expecting help from the same systems that have a clear history of causing harm. Mutual aid projects don't just help with the current disasters, they help us prepare for the ongoing disasters that are emerging because of climate chaos and crumbling infrastructure. When we build cooperative projects, practice making decisions together, share things, meet more people in our communities, and learn about each other's skills and needs, and learn how current systems work and how they are not working, we're better prepared for the next storm, the next blackout, and the next budget cuts. Something really important about all this is that mutual aid is not charity. Charity is where rich people and institutions give tiny crumbs to poor people to make themselves look better. Usually there are a lot of strings attached to what they give, like giving only to mothers or only to children, only to sober people, or only to people of faith. Charity rides on the idea that rich people or social workers should decide who is a deserving poor and who is the undeserving poor, and that rich people can put conditions on the housing or food or cash they give poor people. Charity blames poor people for poverty. Mutual aid blames the system for making people poor and says everyone deserves everything they need. Charity affirms the existing distribution of wealth and life chances. Mutual aid challenges it. Charity is top down, mutual aid is horizontal. Charity is about control, hierarchy, and isolation. Mutual aid is about solidarity, liberation, and participation. People are scared and angry right now and trying to find ways to fight back and support each other. Building mutual aid projects is a way to plug people in, build shared understandings of current conditions, offer meaningful support to vulnerable people, and prepare for the coming disasters. Mutual aid work is not easy. It means forming lasting commitments to doing hard work, collaborating with people even when we have conflict, and facing the heart-wrenching realities of the systems we live under. It is also deeply satisfying work that transforms us from being exasperated, passive observers of the shitstorm we're living in to inspired builders of the new world we desperately crave and need. Stop believing in authority and start believing in each other. We're all we've got. We're all we need.
Thank you. And I apologize for some of the language there. This was the school version. I'm like, what's the other version sound like? My goodness. But but I hope you get the idea of the things that could be done when the systems do not help the people in the ways that are needed, how we can come together as people of faith. So next we'll talk about examples of mutual aid, because this was written, I think this was done maybe before the pandemic or maybe a little bit after the pandemic, I don't know. But in this time when we have the government shut down, especially in the DMV area, mutual aid is just so important. So some examples of mutual aid: direct aid to migrants in the US, on the US-Mexico borderlands, like was mentioned in the video. Response to national disasters when government aid is not enough. Financial solidarity projects for federal workers and contractors. I think that is something that is important, just even for farmers, wherever it is locally where you see that there's a need. Food distribution projects, neighborhood pods. All of these are just some ideas. Use your prophetic imagination. You can think about what are the needs in your community and how can you get together with others in the community who have a heart for the people to create some ways to help all the people thrive. Next slide.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Really? Oh, sorry, Moya. But really quickly, I just dropped in the chat a really good example that I think kind of demonstrates exactly what we're talking about and how we can incorporate faith in this. In Houston, a church leader partnered with Hoodies for Healing to do baptisms, as well as provide resources for people without housing in Houston. And so, again, finding people who have a heart for the community, as well as ongoing and continuing to work within the community in order to make sure that we're reaching the people that we need to in this moment in time.
And yes, we will send the video out to you, and then there'll be some more things that you will receive in your email as well. So how do you create a mutual aid network? It's a good question. I'm glad you asked. First, you want to begin doing research. There's a website that has a mutual aid 101 toolkit, and we'll make sure that we send that to you. They have resources to help you to figure out what's already exists. It even has a map to show where there's already pods, where people are already doing the work, because you don't want to create something if there's something's already there. So check if there are networks in your area. And if not, then you develop a community pod of support. And the toolkit, it gives you ideas, it tells you how to get this thing started. Let's see. Let me see where else, because I was riffing. And it's not just about addressing needs, it's about fostering care and being connected in community. Next slide. So my question to you is, how is your community living out care? How is your faith community doing these things that you probably didn't, you just like, oh, this is what the church does. But is there something you're doing that you might be able to expand upon? We're going to send all that information to you in the follow-up email. There's so many links, and I found some really good stuff. There's a couple of good websites that have it, and there's some articles as well that Sojourners has written on mutual aid over the years that we're going to send all that information to you so that you can have this for your faith community and for your community at large. I just wanted to share, like my church, I serve at Metropolitan AME. We have a food bank that goes out every year. every year, every month. And we partnered with the University Club in the District of Columbia. They provide fresh produce to go with the goods that we have. So there's collard greens and there's carrots and potatoes and all of that so that they can have healthy food instead of this processed food that's not that healthy. So what are some things that you might be doing that you might be able to even use your imagination to go even further? What are some other things that you could do to expand upon what you're doing? Let's see. I'm seeing food pantry. Another one is we are supporting one man who is really struggling. He has gone south for the winter, so we are ramping up our food drives now. We want to do more. Awesome, awesome. In an earlier situation, we networked with the county health school in our church to identify family and teens who are at risk, and together met some needs because we had the mutual knowledge of those needs. Awesome, awesome. And part of it might be because we're in this economy is getting worse with the tariffs, is like, how do you let people know that you have stuff available? One of them is a collection box at a church for children and adult diapers. That's awesome, awesome. Started a rapid response network in Kalispell. Did I say that right? Kalispell? And a larger peer group working with immigrants in Montana. Awesome. Okay, my church offered sessions on explaining how the school system works in the US, as we are a largely Korean immigrant community. Awesome. Because information is how to work the system. You might, it might be like a system where you drive seniors to Social Security if they have issues, or Face United to Save Democracy. If any of you were poll chaplains, they're working with vote riders. There's a process of helping people get their IDs so that they can vote and so that they can have their passports and all of that. So those are some things we're partnering with, even with other organizations. Partnering with local school and support staff and families. Awesome, awesome. So how can that even expand? Like, what in that partnering, what are you doing in the partnering? Are you showing up at the meetings? Yeah, being a voter chaplain, thank you. Last November in Mobile, met some awesome people. And I hope that you're also thinking about this voting stuff now, because tomorrow is going to be that the Supreme Court is hearing a case that might undo the Voting Rights Act. What is it, Section 2, Chad?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that's it.
Yep. See, I'm learning stuff. Look at me. There's a community food pantry at this library where home gardeners who have extra food and farmers have extra food can donate for food. There's also a community center where people can donate food. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Chad, do you have anything to add to this? Because I know you've done some work in the district, especially during the time of the occupation.
Yeah, yeah. We've made sure to do community drives in order to make sure people without housing have the resources they need, but also knowing their rights within the community, and also making sure to support organizations like Dreaming Out Loud, which provide opportunities for folks throughout the district that they may not otherwise have. And then we've also seen a lot of community work around, again, knowing your rights, knowing your legal rights within our community without documentation, in order to make sure that people are prepared in the way that they need in order to kind of have the freedom to travel and the freedom to work that they need in order to thrive. Um, so yeah, we've seen a lot of different efforts, and then in particular with the shutdowns right now, we're seeing people try and provide resources, access to and information about credit unions and other ways in which they may be able to cover their resources, or and then also making sure that people have access to tenant groups, which really fight for people who may be struggling with rent right now, with evictions at an all-time high. But knowing that that work is, again, rooted in making sure that every tenant has their rights respected, so that those rights remain strong. Um, so yeah, those are huge. And I see here we also have a retired teacher and tutor at a local public school, significant number of at-risk students. That's great. And donation. Oh, we got the adult diapers. Yeah. Now, I guess this may be a bit of a redundant question here. But what else, or what are you thinking about doing in your community in order to make sure, to help people prepare in this moment in time, and also make sure that you are connected in the community in this moment in time? I'm going to pause a bit here. We've already seen a lot of great examples. So let's take some time to like brainstorm and think, what else we may be able to do. One thing that I want to make sure to lift up is the fact that everyone can't do everything right, but we can do what we can in our moment, in our place, in the role that we are best equipped for. So, I want to make sure that people aren't feeling the need to be saviors in this moment, but also feel empowered in agentic and acting. So let's dream out loud ourselves here a bit, and think about how we can do what else can we do in our communities.
I know one thing that one of my churches that I served at, there's like Panera always has extra food that they're throwing, um, they throw away every night. So what my assistant pastor used to do, he would go by on Saturdays to pick up the bagels and the bread and brought it to church, for the kids to eat after church school. There might be, or he would take bread across the street to the community across the street that was low income.
Mhm.
Um, right. You can't do everything, but you can do something. And I think that's, if everybody does the something, then more needs are going to be met, and building the relationship. So it's just not, and I think that's the one thing that's really important. The difference between the charity is getting to know the people whose needs are not being met, because you never know if it's going to be the flip side and you might be the person that needs the needs met. And so the engaging is the understanding what's going on, knowing the landscape. The adapting is adapting what needs to be done in your community. So, maybe your food bank is not seeing a lot of people, but you see other kind of needs that need to be met. Is being able to adapt and be agile to switch up if you see like children not needing coats for winter, or
Right.
it's that kind of reality right now, because the things that we used to be able to get because of the tariffs and things coming from overseas now, what is the minimus, the what is it?
The minimus exemption for things that were being shipped that were under $800, which has been eliminated, and has like, yeah, really increased the price of goods that have been shipped into the United States.
Yeah, and part of this is the offering the love of Christ, right? Inviting people in, but also going out and taking the love outside. So I love the idea that we can have these worship services where we invite folks in, but how are we going to show up outside and still bring the spirit out as well? There's going to be a lot of adapting that we're going to have to do in these next couple of years, unfortunately. But out of this, I think we will learn to see other people, and build relationships we might not have built.
Yes, yes. So I'm going to add a few things from the chat here. Remind groups when they have groups you belong to when they have leftovers to connect with local teen agencies or shelters or volunteer to take them there. Which is also, yeah, good. Making a point to eat out at immigrant-owned restaurants,
Mhm.
and message the local construction business to make sure they know if an ice van is outside their building, which is like, yes, very much great. I also want to lift up things. So, if you have a neighbor who may be vulnerable, or may not be well, doing things like, when you are cleaning up your yard, making sure to clean up theirs, making sure to check in on folks who may not be able to check in. When I was back in Dallas, something that my father did that I thought was really um useful, and just kind of exemplified this, was he knew he had a neighbor who did not get out of the house too often, and so he made sure to check on a regular basis in order to know that they had food and water and the things that they needed in order to be okay. And Whenever he left, he would come by and say, "Hey, I'm going to be out of town for a little bit. Do you need anything? And can you keep an eye out on my place?" And so they were able to kind of help them to maintain and stay involved in the community while helping to meet the needs that they had in that moment in time. And it can be something as simple as that, right? Making sure that your neighbors and the people in your community are okay. Um, Becky says we need to learn how to stretch and mend our social safety and add on to the safety nets that exist now, so we're ready if when things get worse. Organize a new coat and gift drive for Christmas from the church to the school, where our tutor, the school counselor, chose 25 most needy children. That's really great. And so and then Moy dropped in the chat a lot of the resources in which we're also going to make sure to send those in our follow up. But these are really good resources in order to think through how you can continue to engage in your community in a way that provides mutual aid. All right. So where do we go from here? Here are a few actions that we want to make sure to suggest. So again, we're demanding to keep healthcare affordable. We want to make sure while we're building these alternative systems that the systems that are supposed to be working for us are actually doing so. So we want to make sure that wherever you can plug in order to make sure that we get affordable healthcare. Reverend Moy, will you want to talk about the Octavia Butler book series?
Yes. Next week, we will begin our Octavia Butler books reading series. We'll be reading together Parable of the Sower, which really talks about this mutual aid. It's a big theme throughout the book. So I'm really excited to read this with folks. Let me make sure I get the link for that. You'll get all these in the email. I'm not even going to try to. I was lucky that I remembered that I had put all those other links together, but I will grab that as well. But I hope you'll join us. If you haven't read Octavia Butler's books, they're amazing, and they really are on time for this moment that we're in.
Yes, yes, yes. I really hope folks are able to join. I think it's going to be a wonderful series there. Also want to make sure to lift up the No Kings protest this weekend. We are organizational partners. There are protests happening all over the country. While we are very much concerned, and this webinar was focused on our kitchen table issues, as as they're called in the political world. We do want to make sure that people understand that all of these issues are intertwined, and we cannot thrive ourselves in a scenario where we don't have the freedom and the rights in which we need in order to do so. So the protest this weekend for No Kings, we'll make sure to send out a link for that as well. But we do want to encourage and drive folks to that. And then finally, last but certainly not least, we would love to invite you to join our Mighty Networks network in order to continue this conversation, continue to share resources, and continue to build our local networks. I'm not sure. I did not prep them at all, so I don't want to put them on the spot. If they're not ready, please. They may be having connection issues, so please, no worries. But Courtney, do you want to talk a little bit about Mighty Networks? If not, no worries. This
Yeah,
is
I
totally prepared.
can. Just so people see my face. So Mighty Networks is a learning hub. We're at Sojo Action building a beloved community online to connect people across the United States with what they're doing locally on the ground, as well as initiatives that are nationally. We have spaces for you to learn from each other, to connect, as well as, the book club that or the book series that Reverend Moya is doing. So we're trying to consolidate all of these learning opportunities for you guys who follow Sojo Action. So I put the link in the chat. Feel free to click that link, sign up for free, and join us on Mighty Networks.
Yep. So please feel free to sign up. It's going to be sent in the follow-up email. And that is how you when you volunteer somebody for unanticipated work, you just make sure you're apologetic. So that's one lesson to be learned as well. All right. So that has been our webinar for today. Let me take off the screen share. I do want to take the time to offer, if anyone has any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to add them in the chat. Pause for a little second. If but will also available be reached via email. All right. If that's okay, then we all have 10 minutes back to everybody. And we look forward to talking to you, connecting with you through Mighty Networks, and seeing a lot of the mutual aid projects and a lot of the ways in which we're going to respond in the moment. I really, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I know there are a lot of places and a lot of places you can spend your energy and attention. And so we really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. And I'm going to turn it over to Reverend Moyer for any last words.
No, just grateful for the energy in the chat, and like I think this is exactly it. It's so much encouragement from what others are doing. It really ups my hope quotient. Thank you for this seminar. So thank you, Becky, for showing up and everyone sharing. I'm just glad to be here, and let's pray before we leave out. We can never pray too much. Gracious and eternal God, we just thank you. We thank you that you sit high and still look low, that you are with us. Thank you for the hope that was put into the chat today, for reminding us that despite the news that we see every day and hear every day, there is still hope. You are still breaking through time and space and helping us to help one another. Maybe we can have an Acts church in the 21st century where no one is without need, and no one needs anything, and everybody bellies are full. God, help us to be the church that is needed in this moment. Help us to agitate, help us to heal, help us to nurture, help us to engage, and help us to adapt as we're needed. We thank you for everyone that's been on this call and those that wanted to be here and couldn't be here. And we look forward to future conversations that you will put in our bellies that will rise up so that we can help your people. It's in Jesus' matchless name that we pray. Amen. Thank you, everyone. Take care.